I play a lot of games. And that's not me bragging necessarily, it is my current job. I play games of all genres, from roguelikes to action games to RPGs to story-based experiences. See, there's a lot of gems out there if you look hard enough, and that's part of why this channel exists. However, with that said, there are games that of course not only disappoint, but flat out fail on almost every level. The reasons for this vary, whether it be that the game had too large of ambitions and flew too close to the sun, to not having the effort or skill to execute an idea. So these are the games this year that still linger in my mind. The experience that made me yell, scream, or even bash my head against the desk. Simple rules for this list, however. These are games that released this year that I've played, hence why no Sunset, and they can't be in early access. They may not be the most disappointing games, I have a whole nother list for that, but they were in my mind the worst games of 2015. Number 10. Rodea the Sky Soldier Wii U. What I described as the Hindenburg barely made this year's list of worst games. Rodea is special. This isn't necessarily the developers that failed here. The publishers and decision makers up top made this game what it was, the horrible mess and release that it turned out to be. Now picture Sonic the Hedgehog. Picture Sonic the Hedgehog in the air. Now picture someone coming in and replacing your controller with a squid. That's Rodea the Sky Soldier in a nutshell. A game that had a main concept that was intriguing and had elements that worked in short bursts was completely annihilated by the control scheme that made absolutely no sense. You have a Wii remote. You have the ability to put in controls that allows a player to aim with it. Why you chose not to in the Wii U version not only doesn't make any sense, it makes the game far worse because of it. Despite the fact that the version of the game, the Wii version, seemingly exists that's far better than what this one is. It barely makes the top 10 worst games list, but you'll see it again in a future list, that's for sure. Number 9. Stay Dead Evolution. I love good old choreographed action sequences. I like a good fight. Give me a classic cheesy kung fu movie any day. Just don't make it worse and then make it into a video game. And I use that term loosely. See, it barely qualifies as a game. Yes, we've seen quick time event games like Heavy Rain before. You know what those games had? Story, action, immersion, reasons to engage. Stay Dead Evolution throws you in and basically decides, nope, you're only getting the QTE portion. Now, I admit the QTE is at least done a little bit differently here, which is why it's lower on the list, but it's boring no matter how you slice it. And 2, if you're going to ride on the spectacle of the visuals here, then you better bring it in force. The fighting here is not only ho-hum, it's downright first-year acting quality. The jump cuts make no sense. The action shown at times is not only boring, it's insulting at times. I get it, it's not the high quality of videos like you'd see on YouTube at times, but it's gotta bring something. And all it brought was boring. Number 8. Snowflake Tattoo. This is a mixture between Atari games and hardcore drugs, and not in the good way. I feel like I'm not the audience Snowflake Tattoo was going for. In fact, I'm not sure what the audience is. The ridiculous premise of doll stakes, math papers, and orbital frozen storage was lost on me. The UI that you have to squint your eyes in order to see on certain parts of the level as it blends into the background didn't help. A game that teaches you nothing, like what the radar does or what you actually have to do. I think you need to understand the next level of Nirvana to understand what is going on in this game. And sadly, the state I'm in wishes for something better in its visuals, gameplay, and support. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe I'm not part of the crowd that understands this work of art. But frankly, I don't want to be. Because if it results in games like this, I'd rather be on the outside looking in. Number 7. Ninja Guy. It may only be $2, and it's still not worth it. Being an iOS port, mix a really bad combat system with only one move that I consider halfway fun, and add to that very bad writing and poor attempts at humor, and you get something like Ninja Guy. Oh, and an escort mission for the first mission, because we all love escort missions, don't we? It started off to a bad start, but I admit I was impressed with something. The name Ninja is true here. because any sort of variety or thoughts that I would get good gameplay disappeared like a ninja into the night after 5 minutes of playing this game. Even on the iOS, I see a game that is designed for kids, but there's much better games out there for that. Ninja Guy just couldn't cut it. Number 6, Darkness Assault. An assault on the senses, an assault on the English language as well, with such lines as batteries in such a hole, and the main thing is not to confuse the bullets. While yes, I don't expect the greatest of localizations from small indie teams, I do expect some translations that sound a tiny bit better than Google translations. Awkward controls, plus the fact that it's really hard to see even when the flashlight is on, the game plays like an overhead version of the old Resident Evil tank controls. Only worse. The first mission you die easily, as you can't figure out what you need to do next. You'll run into an enemy with no good options to fight and run, and well, you die. Even when you get a gun, the boring combat and non-existent story only makes things worse. And as for the horror part of the game, it fails to actually deliver on, well, horror. Well, maybe the horror of a bad game it delivers. I admit, if I had to play this for all time, I'd be screaming my head off, as it could be considered my own personal hell. Here are some honorable mentions for the worst games of the year. Resident Evil Revelations 2. It's saved by its raid mode, but don't get me wrong, a lot of things about Resident Evil Revelations 2 are bad in terms of game design. It does enough to save itself, but no game pissed me off more this year, and it barely missed the cut. Rooftop Cop. Picture 5 minigames that really don't make a lot of sense together, with only one of them being truly fun per se, and then put a bad coat of paint on it. That's Rooftop Cop. The one minigame saved it from this list, but it still deserves a mention. Konami. Honestly, I know it's not a game, but the bad nature of Konami this year and the game it played with Hideo Kojima's career deserves a mention by itself. Fuck Konami. Number 5, Outpost 13. A game where you basically play as a variant of The Thing on a remote Arctic base, picking off humans one by one. What could possibly land it on the worst games of the year list with that premise? Content. See, the game took the term Arctic Wasteland too literally, because despite the great idea for the game, there's 4 puzzles that are barely puzzles. And that's it. The game reeks of setting its sights too high and failing to execute on almost every level. The game's implementation at times was buggy as hell, being able to trigger critical elements of the story, and I really have a problem using the term story there because there is none, without actually fulfilling the requirements, and it was awkward on almost every level to use. You want to make a point-and-click adventure game? You have to sell me on immersion. And if Outpost 13 was going with immersion and boring, I guess it got that part right. Hell, I had problems making a video on it because there was so little content. There's supposedly going to be a second act in winter, but how can I be excited for a game that's not in early access, mind you, that brought this little to the table to begin with? Number 4, Undead Shadows. Oh hey, a mindless zombie shooter. Everyone loves zombies, right? What's that? You wanted gameplay with that? Some depth to your AI? Some reasonable graphics? Something that actually feels fun to play? Oh come on now, you've got zombies. That should do enough for you, right? You know what? It's better to show you on this one. Let me take a clip from my Let's Try video that shows this game in all of its glory. Because not only do we have bad gameplay here, we've got a lot of problems all over the place. The hell? Alright, so what's going on? Oh my god, look at that! He fell out of the sky. Oh my lordy. Oh. So. Up. Yeah, there you are. Up there. Oh, we got a guy stuck on here. Oh my god. Oh, fantastic. Number 3, Shmup Love Boom. Fans of the channel know that I'm a big fan of shoot 'em ups and the bullet hell genre in general. And while it may not be my bread and butter, I enjoy a visual novel here and there. So Shmup Love Boom seems like it could have been something with mixing the two genres together. How you get this wrong at such a basic level is beyond me. You say you're the modern bullet hell shooter, and you use mouse controls as your only option to play with. Mouse controls. The game is not only slow, but it takes everything great about the genre, like speed, reaction time, and decides it doesn't need it. The story is boring. The writing is bad. The visuals are meh. There's really no sound effects. Yes, you're in space, but guess what? Sound makes a difference, and the game's difficult. Not for the sake of being difficult, it's difficult because the controls like a go-kart, without any wheels. Oh, and destructible clothing, of course. On a bot in the ship. When you die. It makes absolutely no sense. Developers, be warned. When you make comparisons to other games or genres, you better live up to expectations. Of the modern bullet hell statement this game made, it got the hell part of it right. And that's about it. Number 2. Yasai Ninja. I don't like vegetables. I know I should eat healthier, but here's the thing. If Yasai Ninja is any indication of the quality of vegetables, then I've made the right choice. This game is one of the worst I've played in a long while, and it shows within the first 5 minutes of the game. Besides a possibly scavengeable art style, the gameplay is completely broken. The camera is one of the worst implementations known to man, where it's bound in the rules of the world in question, and yet doesn't allow for the movement to actually be able to take advantage of it. Combat is so pathetic that a feather floating down on you has more impact than the hits in this game, and you'll get bored rather easily. So many corners were cut in this game that you'd think you were dicing up these veggies for a stew. You'll die a lot because you'll fall into a pit because of the inaccurate controls, plus the devastating camera. And that's if the combat doesn't put you to sleep first. Yasai Ninja fails to understand everything about the genre that it's attempting to recreate, and asking for $15 for it is the ultimate slap in the face. Sure, it's got the visuals in terms of style, but there's a reason why this is the gaming medium. You need a game to actually enjoy it. And Yasai Ninja has anything but that. Number 1. Alone in the Dark Illumination. Jesus Christ. This game still haunts my dreams. The one game that I did a video on that I requested a refund thanks to Steam on. I feel that the purchase of a game for making a video means I'm paying for using its content. And even if it's a bad game, I can teach a lesson or some element of game design from it. Alone in the Dark Illumination has so many lessons on how not to make a game, it's not worth it, because you'd be explaining every element of game design by the time you're done. It's that bad. The game that released at $30. The game that had the gall to ask for $30 on launch. For a franchise that was on shaky legs in the first place. The game that didn't have any advertising when it was released. That's telling. And the name that doesn't even make any sense anymore. A co-op shooter. Alone in the Dark. These things do not mix. But for a game that was known for its survival horror, it throws it out the window, spits on it, and calls its mother horrible names. The game's animations are horrible. The gameplay is so slow and boring, you'd be wondering if it was a proof of concept video. The AI is dumber than, well, Atari and Konami combined. It has a creative idea or two in it, like the light-based damaging of enemies, but pushes it too far and makes it a chore rather than a cool feature. It's also the best electrician simulator I've seen, as every objective has you attempting to turn on power because the creativity juices of the game were apparently drained before its story was written. Look, games can change genre. Survival horror sadly has died a slow death in several franchises, Resident Evil. But if you're going to change genres, you gotta do something right, especially with one of the founders of the genre. You're taking the franchise in question and literally throwing it into the garbage can, then into the trash compactor. In fact, when was the last good game that Atari made? I mean, seriously, why is Atari still in this industry? They barely put the effort into those games in terms of the game design. They don't know what the strengths of their own franchises are. They don't know what a good game is. Luckily, there was a lot of good games this year to counter games like this, and thank God for the refund system that was forced into place because of European and consumer laws. Because games like this, games like Alone in the Dark Illumination, don't deserve their place on the Steam store page, when other games have to fight and claw their way onto the store. Let the product speak for itself, and this product is telling me that it needs to commit seppuku. Those were the worst games that I played this year. If you played any worse games or think that there's a game that should be on this list, leave them in the comments below. The next list that I'll be coming out with is the top 10 games that you haven't played this year. I'll be basing it off of Steam Spy Stats, and honestly, I love this kind of list because it brings a lot of good games in one place that people can take a look at. Anyway, this is Dragdix signing out, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, share it with a friend, hit that like button, do something along that line. If you want to ask a question to me about these games or a question in general, leave them in the comments section below. And you can subscribe if you want to see more content like this or more top 10 lists for the end of the year. Anyway, thanks for watching and keep on gaming. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from normal because I'm not going to do my outro at this point because I'm going to be changing it again in a little bit. So I'm actually going to say all these words to see who's actually paying attention at the end of the video, just for shits and grins in the end. I'll see you all later.